Dear viewers, today I want to take you on a journey back in time. A journey filled with courage, danger, and forgotten discoveries. Most of us grew up hearing that Christopher Columbus discovered America in 1492. That date is burned into our school books, our history lessons, and our collective memory. Columbus, the man who crossed the ocean blue and found a new world. But what if I told you Columbus was not the first European to set foot in America? What if I told you that 500 years before Columbus ever sailed, a very different people, fierce warriors, daring explorers, and master shipbuilders, had already reached the shores of North America? Yes, I'm talking about the Vikings. And today, we will uncover the incredible story of how they crossed the Atlantic around the year 1000, discovered a land they called Vinland, and why this discovery was forgotten for centuries. To understand how the Vikings achieved this feat, we first need to understand who they were. The Vikings lived in Scandinavia, modern-day Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, between the 8th and 11th centuries. Their homelands were cold and harsh, with long winters and rocky soil. Survival required toughness, resourcefulness, and the ability to adapt. They were farmers, raising sheep, cattle, and crops. They were craftsmen, working with wood, iron, and bone. They were traders, traveling as far as Constantinople and Baghdad. And of course, they were warriors, feared across Europe for their raids on monasteries and villages. But above all, they were explorers. Their longships gave them a mobility no other people of their time could match. These ships were engineering marvels, long and slender, with shallow hulls that allowed them to sail rivers as well as oceans. A single sail could catch the wind, while rows of oars gave speed when a breeze failed. With these ships, the Vikings reached places no one thought possible. They settled Iceland around the year 870. They colonized Greenland in the late 900s, and from there, they began to look even further west. In the Viking sagas, the old Icelandic stories written down centuries later, there are tales of lands across the sea. The sagas speak of Helluland, the land of flat stones, a place of barren rock. They describe Markland, the forest land, rich with tall trees. And they tell of Vinland, the land of wine, fertile and green, where wild grapes grew in abundance. For many years, historians argued about these stories. Were they real? Were they just myths told by Viking storytellers? For centuries, no one could be sure. But as we'll see later, these tales were more than just legends. The key figure in this story is Leif Erikson, the son of Eric the Red. Eric himself was an adventurer who founded a colony in Greenland after being exiled from Iceland. Leif grew up in this world of risk and exploration. Around the year 1000, Leif set sail from Greenland with a crew of about 35 men. His goal was to explore the mysterious lands that people whispered about to the west. Now imagine the scene: a Viking longship pushing away from the icy shores of Greenland. The North Atlantic stretching out before them, endless waves, bitter winds, and the constant threat of storms. They had no compass, no maps. Their navigation relied on the sun, the stars, the flight of birds, and their deep knowledge of the sea. The journey was long and dangerous, but eventually, land appeared on the horizon. The first land they reached was rocky and barren. The sagas call it Helluland. Historians believe this was Baffin Island, far in the Canadian Arctic. Sailing further, they came to a place covered in forests. The Vikings named it Markland. Today we know it as Labrador. For the Greenland settlers, where trees were scarce, this was a valuable discovery. But Leif and his crew wanted more. They sailed further south, and eventually, they found a land that amazed them. It was fertile, green, and mild compared to Greenland. Here they found rivers full of salmon, forests rich with wood, and according to the sagas, wild grapes growing in abundance. They called it Vinland, the land of wine. Leif and his crew built small houses and spent the winter there. They fished, hunted, and explored. The sagas describe how amazed they were at the richness of the land compared to the frozen world they had come from. For the first time, Europeans had truly set foot on the continent of North America. But they were not alone. The sagas tell us that the Vikings soon encountered the local people. They called them Skraelings. We don't know exactly which indigenous groups these were, but most likely they were ancestors of the native peoples who still live in the Canadian Arctic and Newfoundland today. At first, there may have been cautious contact, even some trade. The sagas mention exchanges of goods. But soon, conflict arose. The Vikings were warriors, but they were few. The locals were many. Skirmishes broke out, and the Viking settlement became unsafe. After a few years, the Vikings abandoned Vinland and sailed back to Greenland. For centuries, the stories of Vinland survived only in the sagas. Many Europeans dismissed them as fantasy. After all, how could people have crossed the Atlantic without compasses or advanced ships? It seemed impossible. But then came the 20th century, and with it, archaeology. In the 1960s, Norwegian explorer Helge Ingstad and his wife, archaeologist and Stein, made a groundbreaking discovery at Lance Meadows in Newfoundland, Canada. There, they found the remains of Viking-style houses, turf walls, wooden frames, iron nails, and even a blacksmith's forge. Carbon dating confirmed the site was around the year 1000, exactly when the sagas said Leif Erikson had sailed. The evidence was undeniable. The Vikings had been in North America centuries before Columbus. Today, Lance Meadows is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a reminder of this forgotten chapter of history. But here's the key question: why didn't the Vikings stay? Why didn't they colonize America the way Columbus's successors did? The answer lies in timing. The Vikings were brave, but they were not supported by powerful kingdoms. Their colonies in Greenland were small and fragile. Their technology, though advanced for its time, could not sustain large-scale settlements across the ocean. And the constant conflict with local peoples made survival nearly impossible. For the Vikings, Vinland was a short adventure, not a permanent home. Now, let's jump ahead 5 centuries to 1492. Columbus set sail with the backing of powerful monarchs, Ferdinand and Isabella of Spain. Europe was in the Renaissance, full of ambition, wealth, and a hunger for trade and expansion. When Columbus reached the Caribbean, he did not simply find new lands. He opened the door to conquest, colonization, and a massive exchange between continents. This is why Columbus's voyage changed history, while Leif Erikson's voyage faded into legend. But today, historians recognize that Columbus was not the first. The Vikings were. They were the first Europeans to set foot on American soil, to build houses, and to encounter indigenous peoples. Their courage and skill deserve to be remembered. In Newfoundland, a monument stands to honor their journey. In the United States and Canada, Leif Erikson Day is celebrated every October, and slowly, the story of Vinland is being restored to its rightful place in history. Dear friends, the story of the Vikings in America teaches us something important. History is not always what we think it is. Sometimes the truth is hidden in old stories, waiting for proof. Sometimes great deeds are forgotten, only to be rediscovered centuries later. So let me ask you, who was the true discoverer of America? Columbus, the man whose voyage reshaped the world? Or Leif Erikson, the Viking who first set foot on its shores? Think about it, share your thoughts, and let's keep exploring the hidden corners of history together. And if you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to subscribe for more stories from the past.